Welcome back. All right, time to discuss the Calgary Flames. As I continue on with my season previews, the Calgary Flames, a team that stayed in the hunt for a playoff spot far later into the season than anyone thought they would. In large part because Wolf wanted to hold them there. Wolf did everything he could to keep them in that spot or near that spot. In the end, they end up with a pretty good record, considering expectations having been where they were, but they did fall short of a playoff spot. And so I think there's a valid question about whether or not this team will be able to do it again. How is Wolf's season going to look? Because I have him listed as the MVP, because for this team to go anywhere this year, it's still going to be on Wolf. And then the other question mark that's still out there, and one of the reasons why Calgary was a team I talked about later on during the summer when I was just looking at these teams and how everything had happened, was because we expected Anderson could or might get moved, and there were rumors he could be going to Vegas, to the point where we kind of knew what the return might look like, but it still hasn't happened. So, as of right now, Rasmus Anderson's a member of the Flames, and that's what General Manager Craig Conroy said as well. September rolls around, you get into training camp, he's still a Flame, means he's still a Flame. And it's business as usual. We'll see if it's business as usual. Now, looking at their top six, one question mark right now that's out there as well is, Connor Zary. Connor Zary is a restricted free agent. I've got him as the one to watch because it does feel like there's still some untapped potential offensively for Zary. So as long as they get him signed before training camp and all that works out, you might have yourself a pretty decent top six. Huberdeau, who had, I think, his best season as a Flame last year, he is a shadow of what he was in Florida, but I think the 28 goals still helped. Nazem Kadri had an excellent season. Can he follow that up with another? Zary, Coleman, Backlund, and Coronado, rounding out the likely top six. And I say likely because in that bottom six, you have Sharon Govich, who can push his way into top 2 minutes. Then you've got Frost and Farabee, the two that came over from the Flyers. It will be interesting to see. It's interesting. Frost and Farabee go from the Flyers to the Flames. So, alliteration for the win. But Frost and Farabee are both capable of bounce backs from this past season. I'm a little more optimistic on Frost than Farabee. It does feel like Farabee's kind of been adrift the last little bit here. And then you've got Lomberg, Pospisil, and likely Klapka ends up in that fourth line role. Although, if Kirkland is healthy and comes into camp really motivated, and he should, Justin Kirkland, at the time of his injury, was playing pretty darn well for the Calgary Flames. So I think he will get a look there. Dryden Hunt is in on the depth chart as well. Suniev, Morton, Honzek, Cairns is one to keep an eye on. He has shown some offensive ability with the Wranglers, and since the Flames are a team that desperately need goals, if Cairns shows that again, he could get himself a call-up and get an opportunity to help with the goal scoring on the Calgary side of things. Bishop, Gradine, Stromgren, Basha, Siona, and Bell rounding out the depth in terms of their forward group. It's a good forward group. I do wonder if they're going to be able to keep up with the rest of the West. But it wasn't the forwards that kept him in there last year. It was the goaltender. So looking at the blue line, Kevin Ball with his new extension, which I still think it seems high to me, the cap hit for Ball, but maybe Craig Conroy's looking at the big picture, and a couple of years from now we'll be talking about what a bargain that contract is. You've got, as I mentioned, Rasmus Anderson still here, Uyghur, Miramanov, Bean, and likely Pahal. And I say likely because you do have Parekh trying to come in and get a job right out of training camp. And with Parekh's ability to score points and goals, that might make it a little more difficult with this defensive group. You may end up in a situation where either Bean and Pahal are the number 7 defenseman. Maybe Parekh ends up on that roster instead. You've got Hanley, who makes a good number 7 defenseman. Solovyov, who has potential as well. Brustevich is well thought of. Still kind of sad that the Canucks parted ways with him. We'll see what he's able to do for Calgary soon enough. They also have Cicek, Kuznetsov, not that Kuznetsov, this is Jan Kuznetsov, the defenseman, Poirier, and Grushnikov as well in terms of depth on the blue line. I do expect with this depth on the blue line, they should have a pretty good defense core with the Wranglers in the AHL. I don't know if this is going to be a defense that cuts down on shots against enough. Just to give Wolf a little bit of a break between shots. Like if you put Parekh into the lineup and move somebody out, that could negatively impact the defensive side of it. I still think the most I don't want to say most likely. I would still say that a scenario I could see happening would be that Anderson, before we reach opening night, has been traded. If Calgary's not able to work it out, if he's saying, no, I'm not going to stay, and then Parekh ends up in a top spot as a result. I could see that. So in net, it is Dustin Wolf's show. Prosvetov is the likely backup. I'll say likely because Devin Cooley has some NHL experience as well. So with Prosvetov, I would say that, maybe he can get things going in Calgary, but he's had a rough couple of seasons. So Wolf might have to play 60-plus games. So that's one thing you have to worry about, too, is wearing down Dustin Wolf. And then they've got Sergeyev as well. But it's going to be either Prosvetov or Cooley for that backup role with the Calgary Flames. And I do have some concern there. Now, the channel is not optimistic about a first or second place finish. 3% say first or second, keeping in mind the troll vote and all that, right? 24% say third or fourth. So I do wonder with that 24%, is that just people who feel like the Pacific Division's a little weaker, so Calgary should be able to stay in a top 4 spot? Or just people that are very bullish on the Calgary Flames? Then you've got 60% that are not bullish on the Flames, believe they'll be 5th or 6th, and 14% believe they'll be 7th or 8th. One spot the Flames do not want to find themselves in is not quite good enough for the playoffs, not quite bad enough to get a top prospect in the draft. You don't want to end up in that spot because you can stay there for a long time, as Flames fans during the Iginla era would remember. Now, looking at their cap space, there's a ton. Of course, Zary has yet to be signed, so that's going to eat into it. But $15,412,500. So this is a team that can take on a contract. So looking at the Vegas situation, if Anderson goes to Vegas, maybe Calgary takes back some money from Vegas in that trade, right? So yeah, a little over $15 million in cap space. And the schedule, it has its tough parts for Calgary, as it does for everybody. So October, 7 out of 12 games are away from home. November, 10 out of 15 games are away from home. So that's 17 out of their first 27 are away from home. Then in December, 9 out of 13 are at home. So if they survive till the end of November and they're in the hunt, watch out for them to have a good December. Then in January, 8 out of 14 are at home. So there's some nice home stretches in there. Home stands. February, half of their games are at home. They only play 4, but 2 of them are at home. And then March is busy. 9 out of 16 games are at home. April, 5 out of 8 are away from home. So it is a bit of a road-heavy schedule that first 2 months. The rest of the way, it does get busy at points, but it does favor Calgary a little bit. As long as they're better at home than they are on the road, or good at both. It's always, I would say, if you're good at both, you got a better chance, right? But yeah, so this will be year 2, I do believe, for Ryan Huska behind the bench. I don't think there's any pressure on him. I think the only way that you'd see Ryan Huska's job being questioned would be if this team is completely awful and we see a lot of players struggling to score and a lot of young players trending in the wrong direction. Maybe, but that's a lot of ifs. So I think he's pretty safe behind the bench. Now, their record since 2021-2022, they're 15th amongst NHL franchises. 167 wins, 114 regulation losses, and 47 losses in extra time or shootout. Then their top 5 scorers over that period in time. Nazem Kadri's first, 246 games, 88 goals, 110 assists for 198 points. Lindholm, 211 games, 73 goals, 105 assists, 178 points. He, of course, was traded to the Canucks and then signed by Boston. Huberdeau, 241 games, 55 goals, 114 assists, 169 points. So the goal scoring from Huberdeau this past season was good. We'll see if he continues that. He scored more than half of those goals in those 241 games this past season in 81 games. Rasmus Andersson, 320 games played, 35 goals, 134 assists for 169 points. Michael Backlund, 322 games, 61 goals, 105 assists for 166 points, rounding out the top 5. Top prospects, keeping in mind I don't list players who are already listed here. Cole Reshny, the one prospect who is not, at this point in time, signed to a contract and can be considered a top prospect for the Calgary Flames. But they have a lot of good young players in the lineup or coming into the lineup. So, yeah, the prospect pool is not bad. Their record this past season, 41, 27, and 14. Unexpected 96-point season. If they replicate that, does 96 points get them into the playoffs? We're about to find out. This past season, your scoring leaders, Nazem Kadri, 82 games, 35 goals, 32 assists for 67 points. Jonathan Huberdeau, 81 games, 28 goals, 34 assists for 62 points. Uyghur, 81 games, 8 goals, 39 assists, 47 points. So while Huberdeau has struggled since arriving in Calgary, and while the goals were good, the points total, you want to see it a little higher for him. Uyghur's been excellent on the blue line for Calgary since they acquired him. Coronado, 77 games, 24 goals, 23 assists, 47 points. I think Coronado's capable of a little bit more. And Coleman, 82 games, 15 goals, 24 assists, 39 points. I'd like to see Blake Coleman get back into the 50-point range this season. Goaltenders, Dustin Wolf, of course, 29, 16, and 8. 910 save percentage. Dan Vladar, who is now off to Philadelphia, 12, 11, and 6. 898 save percentage for Dan Vladar. The playoffs over the last 5 years is pretty simple. They didn't make the playoffs in 2021, 2023, 2024, or 2025. They did make the playoffs in 2022, and they lost in the second round in 5 games against the Edmonton Oilers. So for the Calgary Flames, they want to get back into the playoffs, and it's really going to come down to, I will say this again, if Dustin Wolf gets them there, right, you're looking at a goaltender that's going to get Hart consideration and all that, especially if their offense stays a little bit anemic. So their power play this past season was at an even 21%, which was 19th overall. Their penalty kill, 76.1%. That's 25th overall. That's not where you want that number. The goals scored, 29th in the league at 2.68 goals per game. So they have to be better than 29th offensively if they're going to have a chance. Goals against, they were 15th in the league at 2.88 goals against per game. So pretty interesting numbers for a team that almost made the playoffs. They allowed more goals than they scored, yet they got 96 points. It is worthy of note as well that 14 of those 96 points came via losing in overtime or shootouts, but they're still points, and it still kept them there. And part of the way you get to overtime or a shootout is your goaltender trying to steal it while your players are struggling to put the puck in the net. And I guess that's the one question mark is, are they going to get enough goals? So for the 27% of the vote that said fourth or higher for this team, maybe they're figuring the goals are going to come, or maybe they're just so enamored with Dustin Wolf, they think he's going to pull a Hasek and just single-handedly pull his team into the playoffs. We shall see. But with that amount of cap space and the uncertainty around Rasmus Andersson and any other pending unrestricted free agents, they could be a team to watch between now and opening night. So I guess the question I have for Flames fans is, do you expect Andersson to be in the lineup for opening night? Do you expect him to be there before the trade deadline? Do you think he gets traded maybe around Christmas? That kind of thing. We will find out. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Just taking a look to make sure I covered everything. There have been times where I've finished these videos and then looked and gone, I forgot to say. So I'm making sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I covered everything on here. All right. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated during this time in my life. So thank you guys so much. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. That being said, I will talk to you again soon.